fighting a battle that was over when I had to relocate. You see, I ain't much for letting go. No, baby, I gotta hold on. Cause trials, tribulations, and relationships have all made me strong. Oh, girl, I cry. These tears that I shed on the trail to bring you home. Oh, girl, I cry. Mama told me that a man's own tears can make him strong. Oh, girl, I cry. I'll sit around here and wait for you to come home. I'll cry for you. I'll cry. I'll cry.
Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowances made for fair use for purpose such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips in the balance of the favor of fair use. Welcome back to the Black History Bite, Part 2, on Matilda. Matilda was the last survivor of the transatlantic slave trade. January the 13th marks 85 years since the death of Matilda, whose name at birth was Abake, meaning born to be loved by all among the Takar people of Western Africa. I would like to continue where I left off of the story of Matilda. When we left, where we last left off, the Middle Passage was a horrific journey lasting some 80 days, during which the human cargo endured cramped and filthy conditions. In the autobiography of an 18th century slave, Oluda Iquano, one slaving ship is described as being so crowded that each has scarcely room to turn himself, almost suffocating us. This has produced copious perspirations, so that the air soon became unfit for respiration. From a variety of loathsome smells, and brought on a sickness among the slaves, of which many died. Separated in soul, a brutal but common fate of the approximately 12.5 million enslaved Africans transported to the Americas over some 350 years. It is estimated that at least 2 million souls perished during the crossing over the Atlantic. Grace, Matilda's mother, would later tell her daughters how she had witnessed her nephews and others from her Takar village being simply thrown overboard when they became unwell, apparently to prevent any contagion. Foster navigated the Clotilda, now carrying 108 slaves, into the port of Mobile, Alabama, under cover of darkness in early 1860, had it towed up the Mobile River to 12-Mile Island, where the captive Africans were transferred to a river steamboat. Foster wrote in his journal that The Clotilda was then burned to destroy any evidence. Foster was ultimately prosecuted in 1861 for illegal slave importation, but the case dismissed for lack of evidence from the ship or its manifest. It was not until 2019 that researchers found the remains of the Clotilda in the Mobile River, confirming its existence and location. At 12 Mile Island, Abaki, her mother, and her 10-year-old sister were handed over by Foster to one of the financial backers of the Clotilda, a wealthy plantation owner by the name of Memorable Craig. In another heartbreaking separation, Abaki's two other sisters, whose names are unknown, were sent elsewhere, never to be seen again. A typically brutal fate for those regarded as mere commodity. Abaki, her mother, and her sister soon found themselves on, I think it's Krieg, yes, Krieg's plantation near Montgomery, Alabama. There, Abaki was given the new forename Matilda. Her mother was renamed Grace, and her sister Sally. Grace was forcibly married to a fellow survivor of the Clotilda who had been renamed Guy. Because the couple were classed as property, their marriage was not recognized by the law. It was simply a means of producing more slave offspring. Even the intimacy of a man and a woman was subject to absolute control of slave owners. Grace and Guy were given the surname of their new owner and put to work in his cotton fields. Matilda's family were likely provided the most basic kind of shelter, crammed with other families into a crude wooden cabins that were leaky in wet weather and cold in the winter, and forced by their overseers to work 7 days a week. The adult Matilda had only a hazy, recollection of those early years, but later recalled one episode when, aged 3, she and her sister Sally escaped from the plantation to a nearby swamp where they were scented out by the overseer's dogs and returned to their quarters. Matilda was still a small child when the Civil War broke out in the United States in April of 1861. Alabama, along with Virginia, North and South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, and Tennessee, seceded from the United States and formed the Confederate States of America on the grounds that the institution of slavery is the lifeblood of Southern economics, was threatened by the federal government in Washington. President Abraham Lincoln made his Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, declaring that all enslaved people in the Confederate States were free. This had no immediate effect on Matilda and her family, as the Civil War continued to rage. But when the Confederates were defeated on January 19th, 1865, Matilda and her family were liberated. Ladies and gentlemen, the first mentioning of Juneteenth. Matilda would have been about 7 years old at this time. Her family headed north and settled in Athens, Alabama. It is not known how they supported themselves. Matilda later related how she learned English quickly as a small child and would help interpret for her mother and stepfather who faced challenges with this new language. They were free. But what would that so-called freedom mean? Thank you for stopping by today's quick bite. We will continue the story of Matilda at another time. Be well, stay safe, ashe, and deep bow to each and every one of you. And thank you for stopping by this quick hit.
Sitting there fighting a battle that was over when I had to relocate. You see, I ain't much for letting go. No, baby, I gotta hold on. Cause trials, tribulations, and relationships have all made me strong. Oh, girl, I cry. These tears that I shed are the trail to bring you home. Oh, girl, I cry. Mama told me that a man's own tears can make him strong.